All right, good morning. This is the Public Art Committee meeting, our third quarterly meeting for this year. We're going to call to order at 9:04. We're going to have a moment for public comment. There was no public comment received prior. I'd like to ask the Public Art Committee to approve the the meeting minutes for our last meeting, May 11th, 2021.
I wasn't present, so I don't think I could make a motion.
I wasn't present either.
Okay, one moment.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second it.
Oh,
All right, thank you. Meeting minutes from 5/11 are approved. We'll move on to new business. We have first item, County Center Lobby. 3 artists were selected to provide site-specific proposals. Those were Sandra Bryant, Robert Delgado, and Judith Ingles. The Site Advisory Committee met earlier this month and reviewed and ranked the site-specific proposals in the following order. First ranked was Sandra Bryant, second was Judith Ingles, followed by Robert Delgado. Staff is requesting that the PAC review the rankings and the proposals and recommend an artist with whom to begin negotiations with. I will present these. We'll start with Sandra Bryant. This was her proposal.
Amanda, will any suggested modifications be given to the artists before they are presented to the county commissioners? I mean, the suggestions that were made, like why did,
Yeah, so I'm gonna go over
Yes.
some of the Site Advisory
Okay.
Committee's
All right,
comments
thank you.
as we go along. And the selected artist will receive these comments
All right.
and be asked to make modifications accordingly. So in general, the Site Advisory Committee had a few of these comments to share. They thought that all of the proposals required more diversity and inclusion in their proposals. The human element is not a requirement in the proposed artwork. If human figures are included in their proposal, it should incorporate diversity and be conscious of placement and representation. For Sandra Bryant specifically, her proposal did not extend beyond the 1930s. There were concerns that the African-American man is represented in blue-collar clothes behind 2 Caucasian men in business clothes. There was the absence of the streetcar. Another comment was that the included verbiage needed to be reviewed by the Tampa Bay History Center for accuracy, and they wanted to confirm the current Hillsborough County seal that is being used in this proposal. Again, let me show you her proposal.
Remind me, is this mosaic?
This is glass, yes.
Glass
Glass
mosaic, yeah.
mosaic tile,
The same at the Tampa History Museum on the Coast Guard.
yes.
Yeah.
And in her proposal, she says that she could make this more realistic or more abstract, depending on which way the committee saw it. Next is Judith Ingles.
What-
Pardon me?
One quick question before we leave Sandra's. is this supposed to have like some narrative timeline from like left to right to right? It just seems like that it's a hodgepodge of times in history, with conquistador ships on the far left and more modern like steam boats, I guess, on the right. Can you give us just some background, and apologies if I missed it? I was having audio issues with the specific prompt of this proposal.
Yes, actually, her proposal doesn't, it doesn't give any sort of information on the composition
Okay.
of the transportation being shown in the background. But let me try to pull up her explanation.
The other major call out is just the landscape and the terrain. The hills aren't necessarily accurate to the area.
Yeah, you'd have to go to North Florida to get any hills or central.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a bit odd.
Okay, so just to read a little excerpt from her statement, the mural would describe the early exploration of the area by the Spanish conquistadors, the impact of that encounter with the First Nation tribes of the area, the Tampa Bay Hotel, the mascot steamship, the Bay Queen, the first commercial flight of the St. Petersburg to Tampa airboat, the Gandy Bridge, the area flora, local birds and butterflies, cultural fields and phosphate mining, fish found in the Tampa Bay and local wildlife, Henry B. Plant Railroad and steamships, deep channels, Port of Tampa, the cigar manufacturing, agricultural and phosphate mining. The verbiage description could be off to the side as shown or incorporated inside the mural in small glass plaques. This preliminary design can be created very realistically or more abstract.
Yeah, I would just say that I think that there's maybe one too many ideas in the proposed work. She's trying to span, hundreds of years of history in one mosaic, and maybe it's better focused around transportation if that was the key, the key ask of this work. Just a suggestion in addition to what the site advisory committee already shared, which I agree with.
Great. Are there any other comments on this before we move to?
Yeah. I would add that I agree that focusing on transportation that actually created Hillsborough County and created the agricultural and the environment, the economic growth of the area. I think the hills, if she's representing phosphate mounds, they don't look like that. So that would be my main comment. I mean, starting with from Ruskin over to Ballast Point when they first ferry, the trains that made a difference to Hillsborough County, how it changed the life, the plant museum, the agricultural in South County. So yes, I agree with you on that. But I also think that maybe the focus, because it is a wonderful port, is that you gotta go a little bit beyond the 40s and the 50s of what actually started. Maybe throw in TIA and McDill. I don't know how you're going to do that, but they're the artists, the creative ones.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with spanning along. I don't have a problem with its spans in time. I think a depth artist can easily, generate an image that spans hundreds, if not thousands of years within one image. But I do agree that that this should go beyond the 1930s because a lot has happened since then. I mean, frankly,
I think also too, I would eliminate the people. I mean, the figures. I just think there may be too much controversy. Or they're really not necessary if we're focusing on transportation. Leave it to our imagination. I definitely like her art form. I like the vintage poster almost impression that I get from looking at them. And it's artistically, I think it's very, very visual, interesting. Her colors. It's just, I think the transportation, if we're talking about transportation, let's go beyond the 30s. So what do you think?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is one of the things I'm a bit concerned about is the space that this is going in, because it's a very 80s monoblock, the colors downstairs. That's going to be a challenge when you put something like this on the wall. So I think we need to, again, I don't know if she saw pictures of like I said, that decorative casing that they have down there. It's very modern versus something like this. It's harkening back to a different era. So I think that's the trick is, does it fit in the space from my perspective? So it's just something for her to consider. If the abstractionism of it might work, it might not. So I think that's a real issue. Whereas as a history where she did the other one, the Tampa Bay History Museum, it fits nicely because you're in a history museum, right? The space is what the space is. That's my only comment.
JR, to that, I want to just add that all of the artists received pictures of the lobby from multiple angles and a part of the call. And if there's no more comments on that, I will move on to the next proposal. Judith Ingles, and actually, let me see, she sent pictures. Oh, how do I get that to share? Okay, and everyone can see this. Try to zoom in. Now, Judith Ingles is proposing to use ceramic tile, some with bas relief. Some of these images, the faces would not have any gloss on them. However, they would receive like a sealant. So there would be like this contrast between glazed and unglazed. So she is proposing to do this in 6 panels, equally spaced. And I can give you.
Amanda, what is the material in between the panels? You know, those white,
That would be the wall.
that just, oh, it's the wall.
It would be the granite wall that's.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. And the dimensions for the total, even the first one that you showed, are they within what we had specified? The specifications for the dimensions for the total mural?
Let's see, she's got the. I haven't added it all up. let's see, the little excerpt, she's proposing a series of 6 wood-framed handmade ceramic tile murals. Each would be 7 feet high by 4 feet wide. The collage is a combination of drawings, cut paper, and photographs. The photographs give a sense of the sculptural nature of the murals, which are in bas relief. The cut paper is like the ceramic tile. They are in free-form shapes, defining the imagery. The grout joints between the tiles create an interesting and flowing line work. The tiles are bisque-fired, then glazed with a variety of matte and glossy glazes. They are fired again to a higher temperature. Only the faces and bodies of the people are left unglazed. However, a sealed protection with a ceramic sealer. If the tiles become dirty, they can be easily cleaned. Goes on to talk about the mounting. I don't see what the spacing is in between it, but if they're each 4 feet wide and there's 6 of them, that's 20 feet.
Someday I'll get used to that. To me, I think there's an interesting legibility to this, just in terms of its sort of, reading it from left to right as a sort of timeline. I also think there's a really distinctive kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like this artist has a very distinct language, visual language. Whereas the last artist's work kind of looks like every other public art work I think I've ever, it looks very corporate to me, like its aesthetic is familiar, whereas this has a very particular visual language, which I think is interesting.
Thank you, Noel. And I want to share with you guys the Site Advisory Committee's comments on this. Again, same for all of them. It requires more diversity and inclusion. Also, the human element, again, is not required, but if they are going to be incorporated, then, diversity, and they need to incorporate diversity and be conscious of placement and representation. Also, very specific comments to Judith Ingles were they wanted to verify the accuracy of the depicted images. Just as an example, the conquistadors apparently do not wear their armor while exploring, only when in active battle. So they felt like a streetcar should definitely be included in here. And another positive comment was that this one probably best depicted the history of transportation from the beginning to present. And then Georgia, I believe you had some additional comments.
Yeah. Tampa and Hillsborough County grew economically because of the railroad coming here. And to see a sliver of railroads in the back, I find that a little, she didn't read her history. And to have an airplane flying over the city of Tampa, that it doesn't happen. TIA, if you want to do it, I find this extremely complex and absolutely the most unrealistic or not well thought out at all for the history of transportation in Hillsborough County. It's just, she missed the boat for me. Why put in the modern the modern trolley in Ybor City? That's a whole modern view. And she's put it in an historic context. She missed, no pun intended, she missed the boat here. And there's just so many things that needs to be corrected. From an artistic standpoint, it's definitely interesting. I'm not real happy with having people in there because, first of all, who are these people? We're focusing supposedly on transportation. Are they historically significant to the growth of transportation, then yes, we need to know who they are. The port plays a significant role in this growth, and I think it's underrated, as well as the airport. And I just I go back to the drawing board. So those are my feelings about it. It just missed the mark.
Yeah, and I think there was one more comment from the site advisory committee about the Skyway Bridge. Only a small portion of it is actually within Hillsborough County. That was one of the other comments. And I want to share with you some of her previous work. She included that in her proposal to kind of give you a feel of what this could look like in realized. So these are examples of her other works. Okay, and with that, is there any further comment on this proposal?
Can you explain, Amanda, the material again, the durability, and you said something about photographs being put on top, or what exactly what the material is? It's all ceramic tile, the entire.
Yes, it would be ceramic tile and grout. Her description that she gives of the photographs is referring to her proposal. The hand
Okay.
sketch, if you will. Dee, would you like for me to go over that one more time?
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
If there are no further comments on this proposal, I will move on to Robert Delgado. So, this is his proposal, and this is all that we really have from it. Mr. Delgado is proposing to use, he uses photo silkscreen imagery that tells a story. They would gather imagery from old archives, newspapers, old maps, walking around the neighborhoods, canvassing, talking to people, taking photos, and so he's proposing a ceramic tile mural composed of irregular mosaic shapes with square tiles. The concept is one of connectivity with the major roadways, the bypass canal, the Hillsborough River, the Gandy and Franklin bridges, suggesting the to and fro of people and commerce. The design outlines the broad Tampa Bay coast and the inner harbors of Hillsborough and McKay with their historical significance in early Caribbean trade. The open spaces of polished granite will counterpoint the shape of the tile. So, if I can zoom in, what you see as the dark gray, too close. Back there would be the exposed granite wall that is existing. And the tiles outlined in red or blue would be his ceramic tile that has a photo silk screen on top of it. So it would lay flat against the wall. And it would, I think he's trying to resemble the maps. And he provides some of his imagery that he would like to see on the photo silk screen. This proposal is very conceptual. Just a little description. The flat tile is the substrate on which the design and graphics are applied using silk screen, stenciled airbrush, Maholic brushwork, and squeeze bottle trailings. The tiles are floor pavers. They are saw cut to shape. The tile units are cut alphanumeric. He goes on how he does this, keeps them in order. And then they're ready for installation on the wall. And that is, he provided some examples of his other works. And I'll go over the site advisories. Again, there was the same diversity and inclusion, no need for a human element, and specifically to Robert Delgado, the theme of transportation was lost, and it seemed very two-dimensional. Those were the comments for his proposal, and I will go back to that for your. Open this one up for comment. If there's no comments for this one, are we ready to move forward with ranking?
I just have a question. What if we don't like any of them? I don't really think that they capture what we're looking for. I find this one very distracting. And I agree with the comments on the other ones that I'm not sure that they meet the intent.
Right. So, well, I mean, if there's a consensus that we need to put this back out, that could happen. But I think as it stands, we would rank these, just best, 1, 2, 3, top ranked to last ranked. And then we would provide some pretty detailed recommendations for the artist to make adjustments to their proposals. Again, these are proposals and not final drafts. So
I think that's a good idea, Amanda, is that we go ahead and with the process, but definitely letting those artists know, look, you're going to have to make it better and present it in a different way.
absolutely.
Can I ask just what's the next step, I guess? Do they come after the ranking? What happens?
After the rankings, what will happen is we'll go back to the artist with our comments. It will go, I believe, to the Board of County Commissioners for final approval. And with that, we'll begin negotiating the agreement.
But we would want to make sure that the artist presented their final proposal before. it
Yes,
goes to
that
the
would be a
board.
part of, that would be a part of the actual agreement as their
When
first
we go
step
back
would
to-
have a final concept.
Right,
Mhm.
But
okay.
what I'm thinking, Amanda, is do you think it's possible to go to the artists or one or two or all of them and give them the comments and ask them to get a second bite at the apple? Is that what we could do that? And, we just have to pay them to do it maybe. I don't know if they'd be willing to, but before we take it to the board, I mean, if the committee is not ready to make a recommendation with it, is that something we could consider?
If the committee is not ready to make a recommendation, yes. Typically, if we get a recommendation from the committee, the first milestone would be, and that's for all of them, is to come back with their refined draft for approval before moving on to the next milestone, but they are under contract at that point.
All of them included, I don't remember seeing the first woman's like other examples of work that she's done.
She
Did she-
she did not provide examples of her previous work in her proposal. However, in her site, in the call for artists, she did. Would you like for me to pull that up? I can.
Yeah, I'd kind of just like to go back and just look at their examples of work that they've done, like, because I feel like these sketches are sort of oftentimes not representative of what the thing ends up looking like. And I think almost any artist can take uh, uh, the suggestions and, you know, make something more appropriate or more desirable to what the committee wants, but they kind of can't step out of their own style. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because like, yeah, okay.
Okay, so this is what's over at the Tampa Bay History Center. And that concludes her previous work.
Amanda, a couple of questions. What are the dimensions of that, of the first artist, Sandra Bryant? What's the dimensions of that work? Does it meet our specifications?
Yeah, let's double check that. It would be approximately 91 inches by 45 inches. So we ask for,
What did we ask for?
yep, let me pull that up. We asked for displayed from floor to 10 feet high with a border, 40 feet wide by 10 feet high.
Don't think that meets those dimensions, doesn't?
Yeah, 91 feet. It's maybe off
No,
of
inches, right?
91 inches, excuse me.
Yeah, just check it against that. I think that's something else you need to ask because may not be big enough for the wall, may not be.
Right, I think
Okay,
that's a standard comment for all of them then.
okay, all right, just that's a comment. And then also I had another question is, was anyone from Commissioner Oberman's office involved in the site advisory committee?
Yes, Lucas Martinez is on the site advisory committee,
Okay,
and he was present at all meetings.
okay, good. Thank you.
That's what we asked for, yeah. From floor to 10 feet high, 40 feet wide at least.
I have not. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like if, it's something that seeing her work gives me a lot more confidence in seeing this image because this image looks very 90s, but when it gets translated into the, like, into its, I mean, those mountains though, that's got to go. No one would recognize that as Florida. I mean, I'm kind of also, coming from a position of like, I get that she wanted it to have some sort of like legibility left to right as like the historical times to like the more modern times, I guess. Although we don't go very far modern, but I'm not sure how necessary that legibility is. Like, I think that okay, we have kind of a Wright's brother era airplane, but honestly, for Tampa, it would make more sense to have a 747. Like this is.
Amanda, let's go ahead and rank and then make sure that the artists know what our comments are and what needs to be changed.
Okay, with that, you
Make a
guys.
motion?
This is just kind of a random comment that I feel like I get the point of like not having people in it, but I also feel like what's the purpose of transportation if there aren't people? Like it's completely centered around the movement of people and goods, right? I mean, so I kind of have like a hard time with that in it. It's like without people, it seems to kind of fetishize technology for like without the consequences that are related to technology. I don't know. There's something that.
So the general comment that the site advisory committee had, it didn't say that you couldn't have humans. It just wanted to highlight that that is not a requirement for it, and that if you're going to use the human element, that you be very conscious of placement and representation and have more diversity if you're going to do it. So with that, members present have ranking slips. For my virtual members, if you would just email me your rankings. And what you're going to do is you're going to give 3 points to your top ranked, 2 points to your second rank and 1 point to your third ranked. Or you can just do 1, 2, 3, your 1 being your top ranked, 3 being your least ranked. And if you email that to me, I will record those.
Do you mind going back to the agenda on the shared screen just so I have my spellings correct, please?
So one other just kind of comment is that the shape that we asked for is really weird. So like to have like a 10-foot by 40-foot thing, this like long, it's an odd shape for an artist to deal with, which might be why none of the proposals came back really engaged that shape. We might consider asking our first person to think about, and I do think Judith Ingles tried to deal with this by breaking it up into multiple panels. We might consider having like a second panel, like if I don't know, the Sandra Bryant piece could have like a historical and then like a modern day, or to make up for that, because I'm guessing that piece is sort of its proportions are sort of a 1:2, and we're asking for a 1:4, and a proportion of 1:2 is pretty a kind of dynamic like proportion. A 1:4 proportion is really hard to deal with. So potentially having like 2 panels of those tiled works. I don't know. I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but what was that? For